Hi, everyone. I was recently on a long road trip and drove from, part of it was driving from North Carolina back to Maine. And on my way, I listened to a podcast with this gentleman, Gary Taubes, Taubes, whose book I've had for a long time. See this? Good calories, bad calories, challenging the conventional wisdom on diet, weight control, and disease. Now, Gary has been out there for years. Um, and this is a little note from my legendary late editor, Tony Burbank, who championed the book The Body Keeps Store by Basil Vanderkolk. And also, she did a lot with John Bradshaw and the family. Some of you can remember when he would do his first PBS specials. Anyway, Tony was way ahead of her time, and she was my editor at Bantam New Age Books way back. And so this just fell out. Chris, Gary Taubes' editor, asked me to send this book to you, compliments of the author. And so I just heard Gary on this podcast with Dr. Bhattacharya, who I think he's head of the NIH or something. I mean, he's one of the good guys. But I wanted to look at when this book came out. This is from Kampf, 2007. Gary was way, way, way ahead of the curve, not unlike Dr. Atkins. He also has a really good Substack. I love to follow the people who were on it when it was not popular. Why? Because it requires a lot of courage to do that. And I also know that's the kind of person who thinks outside the proverbial box and isn't boxed in by neither conventional wisdom or the economics of conventional wisdom. I was just on a podcast with Jeff Childers, who's representing 6 of the disinformation dozen. I will plan to post that here, the YouTube that we just did. I hadn't realized that Jeff Childers of Coffee and COVID has also been widely censored. He can't post anything on Medium or Patreon. Anyway, let me boil this conversation down, and it went on for a couple hours as I was driving through North Carolina. And this is one of the things I loved from the beginning about Gary Taubes' books. He went back to the records of the Massachusetts General Hospital from the 1800s to determine how many people had diabetes. It was vanishingly rare. Almost nobody had diabetes, and that kind of research really speaks to me. He then did a deep dive on Dr. Jocelyn of the Jocelyn Clinic, because back then in the 1800s, early 1900s, they did not have insulin. So if your kid had type 1 diabetes, they pretty much died. But Gary went back to find out what the diet was that they put people on. And the diet that worked the absolute best was a ketogenic diet, like high fat and and protein. Protein will raise insulin, fat does not. I want to read you something from one of Gary's recent Substacks. The ADA, American Dietetic Association, considers its standards of care to be a living document, continuously evolving with the latest evidence in clinical thinking. And the job is carried out by the association's Professional Practice Committee for Diabetes, and its work is internally reviewed by the ADA Medical Affairs Scientific Team for methodological rigor, accuracy, clarity, and implementation. It's all very impressive. And yet, if I were to be diagnosed with diabetes, either type 1 or 2, I would question their expertise and their conclusions. Gary's been questioning this for a long time, and invariably you find out this kind of person is right, but they've just been censored by the powers that be, which would be the sugar industry the fast food industry, and all of that. Most notably and unsurprisingly, I would question their thinking on diet, what the ADA calls medical nutrition therapy, or MNT, although disagreeing with the ADA's thinking on diet forces a reevaluation of its approach to drug therapy as well. Diabetes, after all, is intimately related to whatever it is we're eating. What we eat will determine the therapeutic drugs and doses necessary, perhaps even the complications we develop, and when the drugs and then the drugs necessary for those. Welcome to the rabbit hole. What he points out, let me just boil it down. For the last, I don't know, 50 years, clinicians have seen that people do very, very well on a ketogenic diet, very well. They don't even get the complications of diabetic retinopathy, neuropathy. This is, when you go blind or when you get pain in your feet, that's neuropathy. So the poison is the carbohydrate, pure and simple. And then the drug, the metformin or the insulin, whatever it is what you need so that you can keep eating the carbohydrates. And the thinking behind it is nobody will stick with the diet. He gave examples of people who've stuck with the diet, like this farmer way out in the boonies in the, I